What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All NBA show presented by FanDuel. Get started today when you sign up at fanduel.com/allnba. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. He's back in black, took the highway to hell back, watched the game today, and was thunderstruck a little bit. Legs, how you doing?
Well, listen, dude, the only people I saw thunderstruck were the ones wearing the Nuggets uniforms today. I'm sorry to tell you that.
They were a little
I'm good,
thunderstruck.
man. I'm good. Listen, I'm good. It was a much needed night out with my wife, seeing my favorite band ever, and so we'll start there. They still rock it, man. I think Angus Young, somebody told me, was 77 years old. He did by my estimate, a 20-minute guitar solo at some point in
Oh,
this
wow.
thing, man. And he was running around the stage just like he always does, wearing a little schoolboy outfit. He brought it, man. He brought it. You know, I was telling James, it's always cool to see a big time concert at an outdoor football stadium. Like,
Yeah.
it just to turn around, like I got great videos, like just to turn around at one point and just look at the sea of people for this band that's been doing this for 50 years. It was incredible. So hey, we had absolute best time. My voice was strained. I was singing loud and proud and getting ready for today for game 7. And unfortunately, the concert was much better than the game.
Yeah, the concert I imagine was better than the game today. Was a blowout. When you're at a place like that, like a crowded event like that, how much like are people coming over to you, or is that like a different setting? You go to a sports event, everyone's going to stop you. You go to ACDC, you're just an ACDC fan.
I got some, but not as much as you get. Like if I'm going like downtown to Tampa and there's like it's a big game night and there's just couple cool really big outdoor areas where they have big screens and bars and all that. Yes, that's sports fans. It's going to be different. I had a crew in my row, man. It was pretty wild crew. People I'd never met before, but it was pretty. In fact, so I was telling James, I did do one thing I don't like to do, but I think that might be the worst parking environment I've ever been around at a stadium in my life. That's the third or fourth time I've been to that stadium. So it's like the type of situation you've got to really time when you want to get out of there. So we left right before the 2 encore songs, and I knew what they were. I saw the set list. They're 2 of my favorite songs of all time, TNT and For Those About to Rock. And they finished with that. And I told my wife, I'm like, look, at this point, we're going to get home at 11:30. We had a sitter for our son. And I said, if we wait and listen to these 2 songs, it's going to cost us 90 minutes in this parking lot.
Did you leave early?
We made the call, man. We went. Look, I've seen them like 8 times. I listen to those songs almost every day when I work out. They're on my workout playlist. So I'm like, I'm good, man. I don't need to be tying up another 90 minutes, walking in the door at 1 a.m, going to bed at 2 a.m, and then my son is up at 7:30. Like, no,
Yeah.
I was like, let's get out of here. We made a calculated decision, but to get out, we had to like stumble through and stumble by some people, man, who were definitely well lubricated.
There you go, man. We you called your last game and now you had a little concert, a little bit of fun, a little getaway. It's now my time for that as the Denver Nuggets fall
Yeah.
in blowout fashion to the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're going to start there. We will get later on in the show. We're going to talk about the final 4 teams and kind of preview the conference finals very lightly. And we'll also talk about a bit of a changing in the guard going on in the NBA. These are 4 new teams led by 4 new superstars. So is it a changing of the guard? Are the Clippers, there's that era, the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Celtics. How much of that are those guys moving out the way now for this new guard? We're going to talk about that later on, but we're going to start. And I don't know how we're going to break this one down, Legs, because it was very compelling for about 16 minutes. Nuggets jumped off to a really hot start. You look like Aaron Gordon. Heroic performance, in my opinion. Grade 2 hamstring strain. Thought there was no way he could play. It's going to be a month at least for him to recover, but he goes out and gives it a go and actually played well. Nuggets showed some life, but once the floodgates opened, they did not stop as the Thunder threw haymaker after haymaker. That did not end until the final buzzer, and they get the win, 125-93. What stood out to you about this one?
Well, the start was interesting because Denver looked great early. OKC looked tight. And, you can understand it under the situation. Young team, game 7 at home. And you have the opportunity to break through to a level you weren't able to a year ago, or you're again a second round exit. Making jump shots at home when the pressure starts to build is hard. And so when Denver got out to the lead, you did feel like they were controlling it. And man, oh man, did it turn. And it turned because Oklahoma City did what they have done really all year, but they did it at a level like that Denver absolutely could not deal with at all. And that was turn up the pressure defensively. Nobody was getting by anyone off the dribble. The way they were fighting for position on every pass, whether it was an entry pass to the wing, a post entry, whatever. Even if they were picking up full court, and they turned that game around so fast in the second quarter with their defense. And what stood out to me during that stretch was how, and I texted this to you, how woefully unathletic Denver looked.
Yeah.
They looked so slow and sluggish, and with the exception probably of Christian Brown, who can keep up with that kind of pace and thrives actually in that kind of pace. Man, the rest of those guys, they just looked completely like they were running in mud next to Oklahoma City. And that to me was so glaring. And I've seen it before with OKC. I called probably 5-6 of their games this year. You see it happen, but usually at some point, an NBA team, like you have an answer, you'll stop the flooding at some point. And then it's a matter of, can you now make up the run that they just had against you? This was different. It was started, and it wasn't just like turning on a faucet. It was literally like when you kick off the cap on a fire hydrant. Like that's really what it was. It flooded the street, and there was nothing Denver could do. And they just looked so, I don't know, man, overwhelmed and overmatched. And I understand Michael Porter Jr. has been hurt. Aaron Gordon, you're right. Heroic is the word. Can't believe he was even out there, man, and dragging a leg around. And still had 11 rebounds. I mean, he couldn't do anything offensively at all. Still gave you 11 rebounds and a presence. Jokic, we know, is not an athletic guy. Jamal Murray is typically not as quick or athletic as the guys he's playing against. They just look so unathletic. That's the best word for it. And Oklahoma City knew that, smelled it, turned up the pressure even more. The next thing you know, just 12 at halftime, I think, 12 or 14, right?
Yeah, I mean, at halftime, you felt like they had let go of the rope in a way where the second half was going to take a miracle, and then the third quarter opened with another Thunder run, and it was like, okay, it was over from there.
I was wondering at halftime, like you're sitting there, okay, obviously this game took a major turn. The turnovers were just too much to overcome. You go in down 12, and like I think most people are probably thinking, like and I was, okay, first 5 minutes. Like you've got to get this back to a workable 6, 7, and then hey, maybe then that pressure is start to be felt by Oklahoma City to make plays, or your season's over in front of your home crowd. But they never did it. They came out of the locker room, and immediately it was 20 plus, then it was 30, and man, obviously at that point, they gave up the fight, but you were wondering if they had any sort of punch at all, and they just didn't, man. They didn't have it, and this is how it ended for them, and they probably took this team as far as they could. Look, we've known OKC was the best team in the Western Conference all year by a lot, and but they got taken to 7 games, so you start to think like, hey, man, like Denver is creating some problems. Like who knows, right? In the game 7. And then this was OKC just reminding everybody what they have been all year. That's what this game to me was from start to finish, including the performance of Jalen Williams, man, who had really struggled in this series. And I think he really opened things up in the second quarter and made Oklahoma City look like they have all year. Because I think at times with his scoring drought in this series, they were sort of brought back to the rest of the pack a little bit. When he plays that way offensively and their pressure is that effective, this is what it looks like.
It does show. This game is one of the ones that show. He had 2 good games in the series, in my opinion. I think he actually underperformed Jalen Williams, or J-Dub that is, in the series. But the 2 games he was good, the Thunder won, and won comfortably. So it shows you how much of a – I mean, it's weird to call him an X factor because he's their number 2 guy, creator, but – how different they are when they get those contributions for him. But I'm glad you brought up the athleticism, because this is a very athletic Oklahoma City team. And I thought that had been on display all series, but none more so in this one. One, it's a game 7. You know that they're going to allow an enormous amount of contact. And I thought Denver actually established the contact early on. Very physical. And you're like, okay, they're the aggressor. once the switch flipped, OKC was into Jamal Murray to an overwhelming degree. He couldn't do anything in this game. And you saw it. Same with Michael Porter, Michael Porter, I don't know, what did he finish with tonight? It was 6 points, and I think 4 of those came in the fourth quarter, as the game was over. So those two guys in particular, you just really get your pressure into them, and you saw the athleticism, the amount of guys they could throw after them. And it really is part of what makes the Thunder. I think coming out of this series, you see the Thunder's biggest strength to me is the depth of defense they have and how many great defenders they can throw at great players. So that's number one.
Oh yeah, there's no question. And that was the most glaring part of it. Like, including Jamal Murray, who's your point guard and a very talented guy and capable of having big scoring nights against anybody. He's done it. He's been great in the playoffs in his career. He even was completely incapable of going by anyone. And that's the quickest guy with the ball on your team. So you just go down the list and no one could make a play. Jokic got to the point where he was so, and look, there was a lot of stuff going on with Jokic in the paint. You can't deny it. Not making an excuse. They weren't going to win this game anyway. They were thoroughly, thoroughly outplayed. And that team is better and deeper and more athletic, a hell of a lot quicker and better defensively. But Jokic was, I mean, the frustration he must feel with the amount of stuff that goes on against him and trying to get position to catch the basketball, it forced him in the third quarter. When you come out of the locker room, the game is still, it's still within reach. It's not like they were down 25. They're now 12. He just got relegated more and more and more, man, to being on the perimeter and not really engaging, not posting up. He was just a non-factor offensively. Again, I don't think it would have mattered. I think he was unbelievably frustrated. The number of passes that were thrown into the paint throughout the game that were thrown to the wrong hand, too low. The timing was bad. When he had a seal, the ball didn't come. And then as the defender was fighting around, then it would come in and get deflected. When he would catch it around the basket, it was just a sea of jerseys around him. I'm sure he was getting raked and hit. There's no question. And that to me was like their one thing that differentiated them potentially. They had Jokic and OKC didn't. Jokic really was just a non-factor in the game offensively the whole time because of the way he was being defended. Some of it, people I'm sure that love the Nuggets are going to say, because of the officiating. Not all of it, but some of it for sure. Like, you can't watch that game and just go, oh, no, there was nothing. I didn't see anything there. There's a lot of contact on him, man. And they let it go. Yeah, they let it go. It's a game 7. The problem is, it's one thing if that's going on to Jokic and maybe we're watching it go, man, they're really like a lot of grabbing, holding, and mauling of him. Well, okay, then those other guys should have room to operate because of all the traffic around him. The problem was Denver's guys couldn't operate against that level of quickness on the closeouts, on the switches. They couldn't do anything with the ball to create a situation where they had to like collapse on the penetration to give him more room. So that whatever they were doing to him, they were allowed to do it the entire time because of how incapable Denver's perimeter players were of creating anything off the dribble that related to like an advantage.
Yeah. I think that was really what it had to do with is a couple things. One, Aaron Gordon and David Adelman actually mentioned this yesterday in their off day, asked, what are you going to miss? Or because at the time it felt like he wasn't going to play. And it was, if you can't play, what is it you miss? And he said, actually, it's the offensive creation. He's one of the guys that brings the ball up the court. He's one of the guys that you can give the ball to and he does something with it, to put pressure on the defense. And Denver doesn't have a lot of those guys. It's Jokic, it's Jamal, it's Russ, and it's AG. Everybody else is kind of just like orbiting around there. So if you take out AG, and they did a good job of taking out Jamal by just, the defense that they played. Now it really was just Jokic. And Oklahoma City made a very smart game 7 adjustment, which was they used Alex Caruso on him. And your point, I think, was right. They were going to say it's a game 7, and we're going to dare them to not just make shots from anybody but Jokic, but create anybody than Jokic. So Caruso is basically guarding him like a gnat, just trying to get in front of him, get behind him, just nonstop circling him, wherever he was on the floor. And then they would bracket him with Chet or Hartenstein or whoever else, so if he gets beat, there's another guy at body to meet him there. So somebody else had to create. And I think that's what you saw in this one. And Caruso, I mean, yes, look, I think he gets, whenever you put a undersized guy on a center, that they just are afforded 140% of what a typical foul is. I just think that is how it always is. But they took the ball out of his hands. I don't know what his touches are this one. He just didn't touch the ball. And he certainly didn't touch the ball in the elbows or the block. And that was the game plan. They dared Denver to make shots. Denver took 45 threes in this one, made 10 of them. To me, it's a smart game plan. I've actually seen it a handful of times before, and that's exactly the game plan you want to go into a game 7. Dare somebody else to be the fulcrum because Denver doesn't have a somebody else.
Yeah, and I mean that's basically what this game was all about. Was Oklahoma City's defense and their speed was too much for Denver offensively. Do you think about this? Oklahoma City scored 37 points off turnovers. Yeah. 37 off 22 turnovers. You're talking about 22 possessions. You don't get a shot, right? Potentially that's like 66 points. I mean, so obviously some of those will be twos. Think about the potential offense. If half were twos and half were threes, right? Even if you just went by that route, that's all those points you don't get on 22 possessions. And they get 37 the other way. So they get 1.8 points every time you turn the ball over. And the way they change ends of the floor, like this is what I've said about them all year. It's like a track team. And I described when they flood the lane, it's like putting food into a fish tank, watching all the food swarm it. And they get away with it because of how quickly they then retreat out to the 3-point line. And they if you can have a great night with contested threes on hard closeouts, you got a chance to beat them. If you're sloppy with the ball and you're not going to shoot a percentage from the 3, forget it, man. There's just nothing you can do. There was probably a dozen 50-50 balls in the first 2.5 quarters. I'm talking about long rebounds, tip outs, like stuff like that. And Oklahoma City got every one of them. And it was just how fast they were beating him to the ball, up the floor. They played great. Denver, it was too much for him, man. Early beginning of the game, I was just thinking we might get a good game, like maybe a close finish. Don't really care who wins. I wanted to see some drama. And you just could see, man, the second half of that second quarter where this was headed. And then you just had to see the first 4 minutes of the third. Let me just see what Denver's got here. What can they come up with to create an advantage for Jokic? It's really what it's going to come down to. And then it was just, there's nothing. There was no answer, man, no solution. And I'm not putting it on Adelman or Jokic. I'm putting it on the fact that team is so much faster, so much quicker, so much more athletic, and they were so much more aggressive in a game that allowed them to be as aggressive as they wanted to be, that there's just nothing that Denver was going to be able to do, man. There's no way they could keep up with this team on this particular day.
That Thunder defense is legit, man. It's just so impressive to watch, especially when they're operating the way they are. They generate turnovers. They go 9 deep of guys there was one point, I think it was in the second quarter or something, where you're just watching the amount of scrambling that Oklahoma City had, and then you look over to the scores table, and here it comes Chet and Caruso, and you're like, my God, they just did all of that without Chet Holmgren and Alex Caruso. Now those guys are checking in after a nice long rest on the bench. This team just has so many defenders, and it's what makes them special, and what makes them, I think, now the favorites when heading into this Final Four. But 2 thoughts I have for you real quick. I want to talk about Caruso here in just a second, but one thing, I'm just curious what you think. I don't think players very often, I don't think they give up. I don't think they quit. I don't think they tell themselves they can't do it. But I do think there's something subconscious sometimes that happens to your will. When you talk about 50-50 balls, Aaron Gordon is an irreplaceable piece of this. And I think there was a little something to Denver knowing, even if you made it through this game, you're going to go play Julius Randle, and you might have to start Zeke Naji, who hasn't even played in the series because there's no backup power forward. So I wonder if there was not, again, I think Denver fought, but it's hard to have the true belief in your team when you see something like that. No, this might be the guy's last game of the year at best.
All right, so I don't know. I will say I would disagree with this from this standpoint. Not that the looking ahead part with Aaron Gordon. I don't think that's a factor. But I do think watching that guy be that limited offensively and not be able to move, the perfect example of that was when he was jammed up on the sideline in front of their bench, and he ends up elbowing Shea in the face. How many guys, how many NBA players, forget who you are are going to stand there and get that much pressure in their face, and they just keep swinging the ball back and forth, and his feet never moved because he couldn't move. He couldn't pick his leg up. And then he ends up just hitting him in the face with an elbow to get him off of you, which is actually kind of funny because I said this the other day. It happened in the game 6 that Passion I called, and a similar call happened in that game. I don't remember the two people involved, but I said that is what we were taught growing up to get a guy off you. I've broken noses. I've broken noses. Absolutely. Swing through, because here's the thing. What my high school basketball coach taught me was, if you catch him, okay, yeah, they're going to call a foul on you, and you break his nose, he's probably not going to do that again, okay? And this was literally the mentality that like a lot of players my age grew up with. That's how you got a dude off you. Now, obviously, that they're going to call that every time now, and they're going to even got him a flagrant in that situation. But that play, and then there was a play on the other end of the floor. I don't know if you remember this. Caruso was in the left corner. The ball was on like the left wing. Chet Holmgren flashed into the lane, or maybe it was Hartenstein, flashed into the lane from the opposite side. They hit him in the middle, and Caruso went backdoor along the baseline. Aaron Gordon was guarding him. And Aaron Gordon was 10 feet away from him, right, toward the lane. And Caruso cut backdoor, and Aaron Gordon spun in a circle, but his feet did not move. And he just kind of waved at the ball. Caruso caught it late in a reverse layup. And that's when the game was like getting away in the second quarter. And it was like, man, or maybe it was the third quarter. It was starting to get away from them, but it was just like, man, poor Aaron Gordon. So I think there was something to the fact that they were so less than 100% with him. Porter, the way he's looked the whole series, these are two key starters. So I do think there's something to be said about once the wave came, there was a feeling of resignation on the part of the Denver Nuggets. It did look that way to me, but I don't think it was thinking like, oh man, if we win, we got to deal with this the whole time. Let's just get it over with. I don't know that it was that. I just think they looked at basically a tidal wave, and they're standing on the beach, and it's coming at them. And there's just nothing you can do except sort of take cover and just wait for it to get over with. That's kind of what this tsunami that they hit them of pressure felt like.
I think that Jokic was very good in this series against a great defense that was loaded up on him. I thought Shea was very good in this series on a defense that was loaded up on him. If you go to the next most impactful guy, it might actually be Alex Caruso. He was that impactful in this series, and they have a lot of guys. So it's not like he had the biggest workload on offense or anything, but defensively, he made impacts on every player that he guarded, and he was such a luxury for them to be able to place on different. There's not a lot of teams that can have a player like that, a super defender, and they say, go get Murray, go get Michael Porter, go get Jokic. Like, you can just throw him on whatever player it is you want him, and he's going to make the impact. So do you agree with me that Alex Caruso might have been the third most impactful player in the series?
Yeah, I would probably agree with you. He's a plus 40 today. Oh, which is an insane number. I think they had five guys plus 33 or better. Yeah, I do. Look, I really like Alex Caruso, and I made a big deal about the acquisition when they added him. It was like, man, what a perfect pickup, because they don't need any offense, and he can give you a little bit. He's actually shot the ball from the three pretty well in this series. He was unbelievably bad at the beginning of the season. Like, it took him forever to find any rhythm from the three-point line. Now he's like consistently making that shot. So he's giving you a little bit of offensive punch. But what he's doing to disrupt and the pressure and what it means, particularly when they're at home, the way that the home crowd relates to him. Like, I've said this about certain guys that come off the bench at home. It means more than one steal or one turnover or one basket. It means more than that when those guys do it, because the crowd reacts differently to those guys. Now, having said that, I don't think he's a great defensive player. He won't have the impact defensively in the next series that he had in this one.
You think?
No, I don't, because there are guys. Well, so who are we talking about here? Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle.
Yeah.
There's nobody else we're talking about. And here's the difference. Anthony Edwards has escapability with his handle and outrageous athletic ability, right? Start, stop, vertical,
Quickness.
getting his shot. Now, I'm not saying Caruso won't guard him tough, but he's not going to suffocate somebody in the next round the way that he did in this series. And Randle, the same thing. If they want to try that on Julius Randle, he's quick enough and strong enough. Pick a direction and go. When he gets a shoulder into you, I don't care if you're Alex Caruso, who you are. The way Julius Randle's playing right now, he's going to say, yeah, give me the small guy. That's what you got? You got a 6'5" guy that's going to guard me? I'll take that. On the offensive glass, like all of those, posting him up, I'll do all that stuff. I'm not saying that Caruso won't be a really competitive defender and affect the game. This was more than affecting the game in this series. Much more than that.
Yeah.
And it tilted it in a way that most guys that come off the bench that are primarily defensive players don't tilt the game. He did. I don't know that he's going to be able to do the same thing to Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. Now, look, they've got a great defensive team, so it's not all about him. It's about their team guarding Minnesota. That's going to be fascinating because Minnesota is playing great basketball right now. They've got a lot of confidence, and athletically, clearly, they match up with them a lot better than Denver.
My last take on Oklahoma City, when I watched them through the regular season, I only had one question that I felt I wasn't sure how they would handle, and that was, how are Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, Wiggins, some of these other guys going to make pressure shots? And Dort, 3 for 3 in that game 5, Wiggins in game 4, I believe, and Caruso in game 2, they were huge threes from those guys when they needed to get huge threes. And so for me, I don't think those guys shot well. Like when, watching this from a Denver perspective, every time the ball swung to those guys, I felt like, okay, best possible scenario, but they made the ones that mattered to get over the hump in this series. And to me, that's all role players do. You don't remember. I have no idea what Robert Horry shot in all those finals runs. I just know he made the ones when they needed to make them, when the game was on the line. And sometimes it's all it takes. And all 3 of those guys did it.
They did it, and you're right. And they're so deep. That's the thing. They're so deep with impact. That's the difference between them and pretty much everybody else in the West this year. And look, they only played really 8 guys in this game. They have played as many as 11 double-digit minutes in competitive games this year. So they're just deeper with guys that have an impact on a given night. They don't need them all to shoot well. Just need a couple of them on a given night, man. Make a couple. Make 2, 3. Wiggins or Caruso or Wallace, Dort. You don't all have to do it. Need a couple of you to do that, though, because Shea and Jalen Williams and Chet and Hardenstein, they'll take care of the rest of that stuff. The one number that really, to me, typifies what went on in this series is the fact that Denver, who averaged just over 30 3-point attempts a game in the regular season, took 40 a game in this series.
Yeah.
40. And the reason is because they just could not get all the way into the teeth of the defense and create stuff around the rim. They were relegated because of how good Oklahoma City's outer shell is. They were relegated to take those shots. And David Adelman said, when I was out there for game 6, he said, I understand it. Yeah, I hate the number. I hate how many we're shooting. But that's the shot that's available. We have to take that shot because we might not even get anything remotely as good if we pass that up. But it's not who they are. That's not what their identity is as a team. And Oklahoma City was able to impose their will to a higher degree in this series. And ultimately, it still took 7 games. Give the Nuggets credit because we're talking about this as if it was a, 30-second Mike Tyson fight. That's what it should have been, the way we're describing these two teams. Yeah. But when they absolutely had to have it, that is about what it looked like. Not 30 seconds. It would be maybe like a 4-rounder for Mike Tyson. That's kind of what happened. And then eventually he catches you with one, and we know what's going to happen then.
I think it was the best series so far. 7 games, 2 blowouts, game 2 and game 7. The other 5 games, all the way down to the wire, back and forth, no huge, no pullaways. It just was constantly, the basketball was good. It was interesting watching the teams try to adjust to each other. So I thought it was a great one. And I agree with you. I think the Thunder were the better team. I predict Thunder in 6, I think. So Nuggets in a weird way outperformed my own personal expectations here. And Thunder stepped up. I loved what Caruso said. And we played it on the show a week ago. where he said, I know the Nuggets are going to bring greatness out of us. They're going to push us to become great. I think that happened in the series. I think the Thunder are better right now than they were heading into game one of this same series.
Well, here's the thing. This is why this next round is going to be so interesting, because I agree with what you just said. I also agree with this. Minnesota Timberwolves are playing the best basketball they have all year.
Agreed.
So you're getting the absolute best that Minnesota can be right now against this team. I think it sets up just an awesome Western Conference Finals.
I think it's the two best teams in the West. Like, however we arrived here, I think the two best teams in the West are there and ready to square off on Tuesday, no less. And it's going to be fantastic. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to look ahead to the Final Four and talk about the four teams that are remaining. What is there anything in common and what we expect out of this conference finals? First, the NBA playoffs are underway, so there's no better time to be in the arena experiencing that playoff intensity in person. If you're trying to catch your team live this postseason, let's tell you about our friends at Vivid Seats. Vivid Seats is the best place to get your tickets for any live event. They have the best selection of games and seats, and every purchase is backed by their 100% buyer guarantee. Plus, Vivid Seats is the only ticket marketplace that rewards you for every purchase. So download the Vivid Seats app and start earning rewards towards free tickets. New Vivid Seats users who use promo code ALLNBA30 will receive $30 off their first purchase of $300 or more. Once again, click the link in the show notes, go to vividseats.com or download the Vivid Seats app and use promo code ALLNBA30 for $30 off your first purchase of $300 or more. I don't know if you guys saw this, $300, that's like 4 good tickets to the Thunder game or maybe half a ticket to the Knicks game. That's what you get for $300 depending on where you are. When it comes to playoff basketball, being there is all that matters, so experience it live with Vivid Seats. Also want to tell you guys about Lucy Nicotine. It's 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free, available in pouches, gum, and our favorite, the Breakers. Breakers are pouches, but with a capsule of liquid flavor inside that helps saturate the pouch. Breakers are available in 4 milligram or 8 milligram options. Our favorite flavors are mint, berry, citrus, and espresso. Pouches go all the way up to 12 milligrams. And if you're not a pouch guy or gal, Lucy Gum is available in 2 milligram, 4 milligram, or 6 milligram options. Set yourself up with a subscription and have Lucy delivered straight to your door so there's no more weekly gas station trips. Level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/allnba and use that code ALLNBA to get 20% off of your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you ever change your mind. That's lucy.co and use ALLNBA to get 20% off and always free shipping. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show. We are going to be live 4 times a week. Legs and I both have somewhat regular schedules now. He's done calling the games and the color commentary. I'm done now covering the Nuggets. So hopefully we can catch a nice little rhythm here for the conference finals and ultimately the finals. And speaking of the conference finals, Timberwolves at Thunder. Thunder are favored in game 1 by 7.5 points. Pacers at Knicks. Knicks are favored by 4.5 points. First of all, going into it, which of the two is your favorite series? I think both of them are great, but is there one that you look at and say, that's the one I'm most excited for?
I would say Minnesota, Oklahoma City probably, but I'm really interested in this Indiana New York series because I don't think most people have a real recognition of what Indiana is all about, and I think they're going to see that probably pretty early in the series. I'm not saying necessarily going to win the series, although I definitely think they can. Will not be surprised one bit if the Pacers are in the NBA Finals. This isn't a matchup any of us expected to see for sure. I think at one point, probably as late as maybe February or March, maybe that late in the season, maybe even later, I said Boston and Cleveland is a foregone conclusion. They're going to play in the conference finals in the East, and they're both gone. Like and it shows you a lot of things. Injuries obviously have a major impact there, but they also got outplayed. So, you get this conference final no one saw coming. And it's going to be fascinating to see what Indiana has for this Knicks team that has gone to a place for a major city, one of the major markets in this league, to not have been to a conference final in 25 years is incredible. To not have won an NBA championship in over 50 years, incredible. And I want to see with the Indiana Pacers, how they deal with this moment. They were there last year. They ran into the best team in the league, and the Celtics sent them home. They're not playing the best team in the league this time. So I'm really curious to see how that plays out. But overall, I think that man, the talent, the matchup, I'm looking at that OKC Minnesota one. I think that's the one I'm a little bit more interested in. Could be more entertaining.
I'm interested in both for sure. I think that one, the West, will be a little bit more, it might be uglier just because that's two phenomenal physical defenses and you might get some real grinded out games. But I want to start here in the Eastern Conference. Here's my take on the Pacers and the Knicks. The Knicks were able to get by Boston in part because they would just start switching everything. Even with Mitchell Robinson doesn't care. Everybody just sit down. And Boston's offense got a little stuck in the mud. They love to ISO. You can lure them into it, and they did it. The Pacers are not that way. The Pacers are very malleable offensively. You're going to switch. They're going to slip screens. They're going to do things off ball to like sort of confuse your switches. If you're going to drop, they know what they're going to do there. If you're going to show high and try to trap, they know how to get out of it. They are a team offensively that is built on ball movement and also just basketball IQ. And so I look at that and I go, the Knicks are good. They have guys that are capable of being good defensively. But I think the defense that they played to get to the conference finals is going to be different than what's required in this next round because the Pacers can adjust.
Totally agree with that. Boston is a team that you can jam up if you got the right defenders on guys and look, Boston was shorthanded to finish the series, but you can jam them up because they're only going to do two things. They're going to run a high ball screen or they're going to isolate you. And they're going to win that. They're going to win that point of attack. And then they're going to, if they're playing the right way on a given night, and it's most of the time, but not all the time, they are going to get their feet in the paint with a live dribble. And they're going to force you to collapse and they're going to kick out the great shooters. And the nights they're really, really, really playing well and making you work hard, it'll be more than just the first pass out and somebody shoots it. They're going to make multiple passes and take a shot. And they're all over the floor. They have shooters. That's not what Indiana's going to do. Indiana, the way they advance the ball, how quickly they play after makes and misses, getting up into the scoring range, everything's read and react. Yeah, sure, they set their share of high ball screens with Halliburton, but they're not looking at like that being the primary action that's going to determine this game. That's just part of it. It's what happens out of it and the way the ball starts to move. The number of guys on their team that can shoot the ball. They're just a really, really high-powered offensive team, and they're healthy. So yeah, the Knicks are going to have their hands full. Knicks have home court advantage. Should mean something. Playing in Madison Square Garden, as electric as that place is going to be, but I do think that is going to be a very long series, and I would not be surprised if Indiana won that series.
On the other end of the court, though, so when the Knicks are on offense, I actually think they might have quite a bit of success against the Pacers. And I look at that and I go, I think Jalen Brunson obviously has been great. I don't know if this series is going to be tougher than the last one. I think the last one had more defenders for him. So maybe that eases the load for, the workload for him. And then even Karl Anthony Towns, I like the matchup. It's obviously nothing's 1-to-1 like him versus Turner, but I think he has an opportunity to catch a little bit more of a rhythm in this one. It'll be more up and down. So when the Knicks are on offense, do you agree with me that Jalen Brunson, maybe it's slightly easier individually going into this round?
Well, if Rick Carlisle employs the same strategy as he did last year, putting them hard on him, Jalen Brunson is going to destroy him. And he's going to own the series. He's going to dominate them, and they're going to win. It's that simple. You can't do it. He's not big enough, strong enough. You've got to have somebody that is either probably built the same way or same physical profile as Nembhard that's a lot stronger, or I think even better, someone with a little bit more size. Because Jalen Brunson is a guy that's constantly coming off of screens and dribble handoffs, and he gets you right there on his back, and he likes to stop and manipulate you and do all this stuff. Bigger guys that are behind him and can use their reach to affect them a little bit more, you've got a better chance. Jalen Brunson took Nembhard anywhere he wanted to on the floor last year in that series and got to his shot. Whatever he wanted to do, he did it. So they've got to figure that out. It's got to be more Nesmith for sure, as much as you can, if you can keep him out of foul trouble. I think that's the best matchup on Brunson. And Halliburton also is going to struggle. Halliburton is not very good on ball screens. He's very thin. He's not really strong, and he's not really a guy that's super competitive defensively anyway. His thing is to get you back on the other end. He'll compete more in like the playoffs, but overall, you go at him, if he's guarding Brunson, that's going to be easy pickings for them. So They've got to be very selective when they switch. They've got to be very selective on who is guarding him initially and keeping the guys you want on him throughout the possession as much as you can. They didn't do a very good job of that last year. Just look, the Knicks completely fell apart with injuries. That was a big part, big factor in that series. They're a lot healthier this time around. So I think the Pacers are going to get a much better punch from them. But they've got to be smart about how they guard Brunson in particular.
When we go to the other side, let's talk about the Oklahoma City offense here. Look, Denver was not as good defensively as Minnesota. And Minnesota struggled against Denver at times. There were games that were real offensive slogs. So that's my one concern coming out of this series is Oklahoma City, especially in a playoffs, they're going to be able to throw waves of guys at Shea. They're going to be able to trap and force the ball where they want. They're just going to be better at protecting the paint and then closing out. So how do you think Oklahoma City will fare offensively in the series?
Yeah, look, a lot of what they generate is created with their defense. So some of that's going to be ball control from Minnesota and how many easy opportunities does Oklahoma City get. That's going to help them get to a number they need to. But I do think this is a totally different team defensively than what they just played, and certainly what they played in the first round. So, yeah, and that's what it should be. You get to the conference finals. The test is going to be greater on both ends of the floor. There's more length, a lot more size on the back end, more athleticism, quicker feet. It's going to be a much bigger challenge for OKC. You're going to see there's going to be times in this series coming up where you're going to be, we're going to be breaking down and marveling at Minnesota's defense. And I don't know that we really did that at all in the Denver series or the Memphis series. The next opponent, Oklahoma City is the best defensive team in the NBA. And certainly we're going to talk about that a lot. But there's going to be times and stretches of games where you're going to go, man, that Minnesota defense for that 8-minute stretch really clamped down. And we didn't, that's something that Oklahoma City really hasn't seen in the postseason.
Yeah. What about the other end of the floor? Can Minnesota, because when you say they're playing their best ball of the year, I think what you really mean is they're playing their best offensive ball. Their defense has been good. They've had these good stretches, but they just look like they make sense offensively lately and in this playoff run. But now you go up against this juggernaut OKC defense. So what is your confidence level that they're going to be able to succeed offensively?
I think that's fair. And I think so. A couple things. Julius Randle has found the best rhythm he's had since he's been in Minnesota. And that's not just my eyeballs. That's him saying it himself. That's also Chris Finch saying it. That's Anthony Edwards saying it. He's in a different place right now. He's a very talented guy. I didn't love him in New York as the primary guy pre-Brunson's arrival. I thought he over-dribbled. He was not a very consistent shooter. He had moments in the playoffs where he couldn't make a perimeter shot and he didn't know what to do, how to beat you. His passing is better now. His confidence, the way he sees the floor, the way he takes advantage of smaller guys and mismatches. He's played the best basketball he's played, maybe not only just in Minnesota, maybe in his career. So that's one. You talk about them offensively, and you're right. That's really kind of, I think, what I am primarily talking about. Look at the growth of Jaden McDaniels. Like where this guy has come this season as a scorer. He's now this X factor guy that can get you 20 plus on any given night. And then there was one guy that he's had a very rough and up and down and inconsistent year. Injuries played a part in it. I'm wondering if that last game he had against Golden State, where he kind of broke out, made some shots, and Dante DiVincenzo. I think Dante DiVincenzo is an X factor in this series.
Love it.
And if he's making threes, because he's going to play 25 minutes regardless because of his energy, his defense, how hard he plays. If he's also making threes, I look at their team offensively and I go, man, this is something special on certain nights that's going to be different for OKC to deal with. So yes, that's, I think, what I was mainly talking about with Minnesota. We already know their defense is good, but their offense right now, I think, is better than it's been to this point. And it's primarily because how well Randall's played, the emergence of McDaniels, and Dante DiVincenzo's that X factor. If he can be hot for multiple games in a series, and he gives them 3 good shooting games, it might not even be every night. That might be enough of a tipping point on those nights to really help that team win a game.
And I think rest matters in the playoffs. Getting your work done early in a series helps you out. And the Thunder are young. They're athletic. I think they'll be fine overall. But game 1 is in OKC on 48 hours rest. Meanwhile, Minnesota's had a week off. And I do think that's a small thing. It's not, I don't want to overstate it, but it is a small thing heading into this one, because if it was in Minnesota, you could say, okay, game one, you're on the road, what's expected. But this game is in Oklahoma City. You need to win that one to get the series started off on the right foot. And Minnesota is going to be very ready and prepared for that game when it arrives. Last thing I want to ask you, Legs, before we get out of here: Denver Nuggets, Milwaukee Bucks, Boston Celtics, Golden State Warriors, LA Clippers. If you want to throw LeBron in there, I think Luka makes that kind of completely different. But all those teams I just mentioned, they've been at the top for a long time. It's been one of those teams in the conference finals now for several years in a row, and there's a lot of players there. Is it not over for this era? Because I think these teams can retool and rebuild, but maybe the best window for those teams has passed by. And when you look at the teams that are in here now, Thunder, young, new generation. Timberwolves, young, led by new generation. Pacers, young, new generation. Knicks, maybe medium. But do you think that those teams I listed off, that, maybe we won't see them back in the conference finals next year?
You talking about the teams that you mentioned as being maybe the time is now past them? Those teams?
Celtics, Nuggets,
yeah,
Warriors.
You're saying, can those teams reinvent themselves and stay on top? I don't look, man. Some yes, some no. I think some I would say it's possible. Some of them I would say no. I think that it's past them. One thing that kind of was exposed to some of the teams you mentioned, it's amazing how you think when those teams played well during the season, all of the teams you mentioned, you watch them and you're like, they're healthy and playing well. You're like, damn, man, wow. Yeah, these teams could, do real damage this year. These are great teams. And then guy goes down.
I know.
And it's unbelievable how much different you view their depth. I mean, look at Golden State after they got Jimmy Butler, and we're like, oh man, people are like, man, look at the difference Jimmy Butler's made with his team defensively, the difference he's made for Steph Curry. Like, wow, this is legitimately now a team that you wouldn't want to play. They're a contender. And then Steph Curry got hurt. And you're like, man, like this is all they have? Especially when Jimmy Butler finished that series, like, he said he, I guess was ill, whatever. Those last two games, he's like a non-factor offensively. He's your other star. Then you start really scanning the rest of the roster. You're like, my goodness, like look how limited some of these guys are. And I think all of these teams almost fell into that category. So it's like things have to go perfectly for health for those teams to stay with these younger, deeper, faster, more athletic teams. And all of the teams you mentioned pretty much had injuries at some point. Yeah. So the question is like, can they get another round of health? Well, obviously Tatum's out all next year. That's going to really dramatically affect them. You look at a team like the Lakers. I just think there's too many unknowns with the Luka LeBron thing. I don't know that that's all over with for LeBron. Luka, I don't know. I need more. I need an off season for Luka in LA before I can judge that. I don't know. You put the Clippers in there, which kind of surprised me because they haven't had the level of success the other teams you're talking about have. Why'd you put them in there?
Just because they're like Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, they've been meaningful impact players.
Well, then let me ask you something, Dior. What about the Sixers? Would the Sixers be in that category?
So I thought Suns and Sixers maybe also, yes. Like you're just talking about
superstar players, big names, MVP in the case of Philly. They had Paul George and Maxey's an all-star. And you're like, yeah, man, are they cooked? Because Embiid can't ever stay healthy. Paul George can't ever stay healthy. So maybe you include some of those other teams too. And there's no question. I think the way you described it was a changing of the guard. I do think it's true. Look at who's left playing, Adam. Indiana Pacers Indiana's never won it. Never. Yep. The New York Knicks, it's not since the 70s. Okay. The Minnesota Timberwolves have never won it.
Yeah.
And the Oklahoma City Thunder,
have never won it. Have never won it.
Yeah, you've never won it. That's right. And don't give me the Seattle Supersonics, man, because I'm one of these people that thinks, no. Now, if you left Seattle and you won it 2 years later, okay, you're still linked to Seattle a little bit because it's not a same roster. But come on, man. How long have they been in Oklahoma City now? What year did they leave?
The Lakers still count all those ones from Minnesota because somebody told me it's like Seattle has to get a team and then they don't count anymore. And I go, well, there's a team in Minnesota. They still count them for the Lakers, so you never know.
Yeah, man. No, man. I'm sorry, but Oklahoma City's their own entity. They've been there too long now. They've never won it. So look what. I mean, it's going to be pretty awesome to be honest with you. Like they're for one of these cities.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if it's the Knicks? I mean, the way these people are acting, Timothy Chalamet, like how much more can you see Timothy Chalamet? He's hanging out the back of an Escalade going around the Madison Square Garden slapping high fives with throngs of fans. Like, can you imagine the parade in Manhattan if the Knicks win the title? But all these teams, OKC, Indiana, like Minnesota, like it's in that way, Adam. It's kind of cool, man, that we're going to get something at the end of this that's going to be unlike anything we've seen for a really long time. It's different. It's new. It's different names. It's different faces. And these other teams that you mentioned, that long list of teams, man, I think it might be trending in the wrong direction for a lot of them.
And meanwhile, there's the Detroits of the world. There's the Houstons, there's the young teams behind them that didn't make it this far, but feel like they're next in line. So it does feel a little bit like a changing of the guard, but of course,
Orlando Magic. Let's not forget the Orlando Magic.
Star-crossed year, but maybe the better luck next year, right?
Young and top-tier talent that's very young, and so I think they're in that mix too. Detroit, Houston, Orlando, like these are the and then the teams we just mentioned that are still playing.
Yeah. The three small markets and the biggest market of all in New York City, though, which is kind of ironic. I think more people are probably rooting for the Knicks than the other three teams combined, just by fan base size. When you look at the size of that Knicks fan base, so we'll see what happens. It should be a good Final Four. There's interesting players there and some guys getting elevated to a bigger stage, which should be fun. We got some super chats, James. What are the people saying? Teddy Hart says no remaining team has won or has won in recent memory, and no, the Sonics chip doesn't count for OKC, in my opinion. We should have read that one first, Legs, because that's exactly what we just said.
I agreed. Come on, man. And then look, and even the one they did win was back in the late 70s. They went to back-to-back finals in 78-79 against the Bullets. So even if you said, okay, we'll include them, they've been almost as long as the Knicks without a title.
Yeah. What do we got? Teddy Hart again says sick Dort and Caruso on Ant simultaneously. Shrug emoji. I mean, look, that's the nice thing about OKC. They got a lot of guys they can throw at you.
And I think Anthony Edwards, I mean, they were 2-2 this year against them. They played them back to back. I think the last two times they played, they split both two very close games. Minnesota won in Oklahoma City on the second of those two games. Anthony Edwards, if you go look at his numbers against them, like he did have like sort of pedestrian shooting nights against OKC. So we're going to see, but I don't think he had the running mate that he's got now. I think Julius Randle's a different player than he was most of the season for Minnesota.
By the way, Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, both vying for, the next guy. So I think this series will have a nice personal battle, even if they're not guarding each other. I think both guys want to walk out of the series feeling like, no, I'm next. I'm the guy. It's my time right now. Last one.
Look at real quick. Just look at the the guard play in this Final Four. Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards. I mean, that's elite guard play, man. All young guys too.
Yeah. And then Teddy Hart again says, I think if Coach D plays Chet at the 5, it'll neutralize Gobert since Chet is an outside threat. If that happens, does Gobert lose most of his PT? I don't know.
I will tell you this. I don't know because I think teams have tried that and somehow he still finds his way on the floor. But I will say this, even if you can play him off the floor in that way, they've got a pretty damn good answer in Naz Reid. So they can go to a guy that's far more athletic, fleeter of foot, still a good rim protector, and then in his own right, a big-time threat on the other end of the floor that you've got to account for with your spacing. So they've got guys, this former 6th man of the year could have won it this year, really, with the year. He had a better year this year than he had last year, and he won the award last year. Naz Reid is about as good as it gets in this league for a backup big.
Yeah. All right. Cue that outro music there, James. We got you guys. Nice. We had an early game, so we did a little late night. Oh, we do have 2 more, he says. You can still start
2 more
the
quick ones
music.
just came in. Yep.
All right, man.
Shout out to Tim Legler, 96 3-point champion.
All right. Thanks, Mom. Listen, man. Shout out to Tim Legler, 96 3-point champion. I love that. Yeah, let's give him a shout out for that.
Let's give him a shout out, man. Shout out, Legs. Hey, shout out. Joey Boya says, say OKC goes to the final and wins in 4 or 5 games. That would be 3 straight years of boring finals. Okay, if that happens, but maybe they won't, maybe they won't.
Yeah, I mean, listen, what can I tell you, man? It's, you get teams that are lapping the field the last couple of years. If that happens, it happens. All you can do is tip your hat to them because they won 68 games, man. If they end up running the table here and winning 8 more games and end up as NBA champions, nobody should be surprised by that. This is what they've built there. Give them credit because they've done it with an incredibly young roster. If they're able to pull it off this year, who knows what their run could end up looking like over the next few years.
Should be good ones, man. We are off tomorrow since we got done tonight, but we will be back on Tuesday. So make sure you're subscribed. Here's we get to the conference finals. We'll be breaking it down. Hit that like button for us on the way out, everybody. We'll see you.
We all silly like the mayor.